Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Modern Campfire. I'm Jersh,
And I'm Mears.
and we're a couple of friends huddled around our computers to discuss all things movies and pop culture news. In this episode, we're going to review the movie Past Lives. Past Lives was written and directed by Celine Song and stars Greta Lee, Teo Yu, and John Magaro. It's nominated for Best Picture and a few other things, if I'm not mistaken. I think script. I should Google these ahead of time, but you can see I do these things in order. Um, I also I also feel that when I pull up this article to remind myself of the involved parties, the stars and the credits and things like that, I just assume that the Oscar nominations are gonna be there, but they're not. So yeah, original screenplay and best picture.
Okay.
So my question for you, and I'm not even gonna get into what the plot is because it's a very simple plot. So I feel that if I give away what it is about, that robs the reason to watch the majority of the movie. So
Yeah.
I'll just say, um, yeah, it's a movie we watched because it was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Picture. And so, Mears, had you ever heard of this before? What was your familiarity or expectations? And then what did you think?
Yeah, never heard of it before until I looked at the list just to see like what we were going to be watching. Actually that's not true. I did see it um I think advertised on Paramount Plus or something.
Okay.
Like just like the picture, but I didn't even know that it was nominated. Like I didn't know. I just saw
Oh, wow.
um the title. No idea what it was about. Um so I had, no clue, no expectations going into it.
Okay.
Um, it's an interesting movie. Um, I don't know how general audiences would feel about it. It was um without being spoilery, it made me feel um emotions that weren't happy.
Okay.
It was
Okay.
yeah, it was not it I didn't expect to feel um that way. Um, and because it is a simple plot, and I feel like
Like if
anything that I say would completely spoil the whole thing.
yeah, I feel like yeah, if you just say oh this and this happens, that might be the whole movie. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, it's it's a it's a slow burn.
Hmm.
It's um one that you can't really like be on your phone while you're watching it because you might, especially since it's in a lot of it is in Korean.
Hmm.
You can't, and just I feel like there's a lot of um kind of things to look at visually to see like the scene. Quite a bit of it was very quiet and just like people sitting in a room for a while or sitting, on the laptops. Um, it was um I felt kind of sad
Okay.
watching it. I didn't like the feelings that I had. Um, it didn't mean that I didn't like it. I'm just not I'm not sure. It didn't yeah, I'm not sure exactly how I feel about it. It didn't thrill me and I didn't hate it.
Okay.
It was just and I don't think that's what they didn't intend for it to be um like Maestro, where I, felt just this um sense of, it wasn't like this big epic story. It wasn't. Yeah.
Hmm.
That's what I'll say without talking about the plot at all.
Spoilers. Okay.
Like to
So
be, yeah,
yeah,
general.
I also had never heard of it. I only looked it up because it was nominated for an Academy Award. I didn't know what the premise or plot was. I avoided reading it when I pressed play to be able to watch it for this review. my hope was that it was going to be a time travel movie, that it was about past lives and reincarnation or
Mm.
something to that effect. Um, and it's not that, and I don't think that's a spoiler. Just me trying to guess what the movie's going to be based on literally only knowing the title. And so I didn't really have any expectations. Um, I did not like this movie. I was bored out of my mind. Um, I felt that um, the kind of messages and things that they were trying to articulate and display, I have been they've been communicated to me, and I have had strong emotional reactions to in other movies about the nature of relationships and how people kind of come and go in your life, and um, especially what things that happen to the main two characters. I just I just didn't care. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't there
Mm.
was not a lot there that made me like root for a happy ending for really any of the characters in the movie.
Oh, okay.
Because from where I'm sitting, it's like you had one 3-minute sequence early on in the movie, and it's like I just didn't think that it was very impactful, and then the rest of the movie happens, and I'm like, yep, that's sure what happened. You know what I mean? Like I didn't, I wasn't like you said, like, I didn't find myself rooting for the characters or getting emotionally invested, speaking of, I guess, Maestro, because, this movie is about two people. They're on the cover. And Maestro is a movie about a man and wife, a relationship. And yeah, like just for as a point of comparison, because they're both nominated for Best Picture. I mean, I think Maestro is like clearly way more emotionally
Yeah.
investing and more characterization. Like I learned more about those characters over time, and some nice things that I can say is that well, here's what I want to say. I feel like the cinematography could have been good if they had more resources. I feel like this was a very limited resource movie. To my eye, there was a lot of digital noise in this movie, and there was like maybe some zoom ins and cropping into shots that were maybe shot wider or further away, because there was just a lot of noise
Oh.
and color distortion, kind of in the backgrounds, never on the actors, but just normal kind of digital artifacts that you're used to seeing on like a consumer grade digital camera. You know what I mean? Like I almost feel like they should have shot it on an iPhone. I feel like an iPhone would have looked better. You know what I mean? I don't know what it was shot on. I don't, but I mean, if it's an iPhone, I'll be completely surprised. Um, but so I liked the camera movements, but I didn't like the texture of the movie. Like we just talked about the holdovers, the beautiful texture the holdovers had.
Mhm.
um and I've loved some low budget movies, right? I like my own movies. The Duplass brothers took like 10 years to get anything going in their careers. Their early stuff, The Puffy Chair, was shot for like, I don't know, a couple $1,000. Like it looks like shit, but the characters are so good, the script is so snappy, and the story is so endearing that you kind of push that stuff to the wayside. So for me, when I'm looking at the clock every 5 or 10 minutes and I'm not invested in these characters, these other technical drawbacks have a light shined on them that probably wouldn't otherwise be there if I was feeling myself getting sucked into the story, if that makes sense. Um, I won't bore people with music, but the music was very CJ minor F. um, and I guess probably more C, E minor, A minor, F, but it just was like very reminiscent of like a lot of music I had heard before. There's a sequence that in the movie that's like a really long take where the music builds up, and I thought maybe that was the high point of the movie, but that's also what I knew I really didn't care because it wasn't doing anything to me. You know what I mean? So I'm like really I wish that I would have liked this movie. I also feel that the things that they're trying to say, there's one character in particular that just like has this expository monologue about I won't say where in the movie, but there's a character laying in a bed that's like, man,
Oh.
you know, XYZ, if this was happening, and basically it's just like a bunch of exposition of what's going on in the movie and kind of
Yeah.
what the theme is and what their role is in the movie. Um, And I also thought the setup of the opening, which was actually really intriguing, of that opening scene where there's like a little bit
Mm-hmm.
of a voiceover. I thought
Yeah.
that never paid off and came back around. You know what I mean? That's for
I
me.
expected once it
Yeah,
later in the
a
movie, I
dovetail or
expected to see the
something.
reverse of that and like
Yeah.
see from there because it it there was a shot from behind
Mm-hmm.
of them sitting there, and I expected um to see the reverse of that.
So yeah, we will do a spoiler section just so we can give a little bit more details about what we did or didn't
Hmm.
like about the movie, just to be fair. I mean, I will say I'm happy for the people involved. I think that it's so
Hmm.
cool that from where I'm sitting, a story with limited resources that doesn't have the maestro budget, the Killers of the Flower Moon budget, to, you know, to make an impact on people and to get some award nominations and to get some recognition for what has probably been a lot of hard work maybe behind the scenes. I'm like I'm really happy for them. I don't hold any ill will towards the people involved, but I just want to be honest about my feelings towards the project itself, the film that I watched, right? So let's
But
give
we hope that they
our
lose at the Oscars.
yeah, and I hope they fucking lose. No, I'm just kidding. Um, uh, yeah, so let's give our scores for what we think of this. How many marshmallows out of 10, and then we'll get into spoilers.
Um, I'm probably gonna give it a six.
Okay.
6 marshmallows.
I'm at a 5, which is average. It's competent but forgetful. Not enough is done to induce any positive or negative response. Again, like I don't. Um, it's like I was never mad at the movie. I just was like, I see what you're doing, and I feel like this could have been done better. That's a shame. There's still 90 minutes left. I see. You know what I mean? Like, so it just was kind of a blah movie that I had trouble finishing. And when I got to the end, I wasn't really, again, surprised or impacted by anything. And I just was like ready to be done with it.
I'll be honest, I also did have trouble. So I watched like the first, I think, 30 or 40 minutes of it yesterday
Mm-hmm.
afternoon. And then I stopped and I had trouble going back to it because I was kind of like, I don't really. It made even before like that if it got to any emotional parts even before that, it made me feel just like kind of depressed. And I
Mm.
was like, I don't know if I like what this is making me feel like. And then I ended up finishing it last night because I was like, I need to finish it. So yeah, I do agree, but I did give it a six because I mean it did make me feel something, and I did feel more obviously than you did. It did affect me, and we'll talk about it, but that's why I gave it a six.
Okay. So that's our overall thoughts, spoiler free thoughts with our rating of the movie. Now let's go ahead and do a quick spoiler discussion. Full spoiler warning for the movie Past Lives. If you have not seen the movie or do not know what the premise is, we are going to spoil it. That is your full and final warning. Nothing is off topic or off limits here, talking about the plot or anything that happens in the movie. Normally, this is the part where I say I recommend you go watch it. I would not recommend people watch this movie.
Okay.
um, I just, I mean, it's like I can tell you, right? It's like uh, two kids were friends, and then one of them moves away, and a couple of times in their life they think about hanging out and they don't, and then she gets married. That's it. And
And
so,
then he comes back, and he comes to visit.
yeah, for a night for 3 hours. Yeah,
Yeah,
after again a
that's it.
quarter of a century later, where it's
Hmm.
not. It's almost like not even physically possible for you to give a shit about this person who's essentially a stranger,
Yeah,
and you've been married to somebody else for almost a decade. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Like, I mean, there are people I've had closer friendships in my life as an adult than they had being friends and like going to the park one time before she moved away, that I like sometimes forget their names. And that's, less than a decade ago, right? And
right.
so this idea that like, oh no, it's like I just didn't get bought in. I just wasn't.
Oh.
I wasn't rooting for them one way or the other. I just was like, I don't. There's
I
nothing special about you guys went to school together. You know what I mean? Like I just don't. There wasn't that characterization there. There wasn't that kind of uniqueness, a specialty. They just felt like, and maybe that was the point. The point was there is nothing special about them. They're just regular people. It's like to that end, I don't. Then why do I care even more? It's not. I'm not trying to watch a documentary.
right. Well, I think that reason why like they kept kind of like coming back together is possibly, how they kept talking about, the past lives. I can't remember the term, the
In
Korean
you
term.
or
Or
on you.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes. I think maybe that's what that was supposed to be, that like they knew each other in a past life, and so they had this pull, they had this connection that maybe they didn't fully understand, in this life, but it was because of their past lives together. Like they said, people who are married have 8,000 layers of
Mm-hmm.
it. Um, and so maybe that's kind of what that was. Um, and then I did like how at the end he said, like what if we're in a past life right now, what might we be to each other in the next life.
Mm-hmm.
um it did kind of like, I liked that aspect of it, but I did think some of it kind of went over my head, and I thought maybe I'm just dumb because I feel like the movie was trying to be smart about it, and that it was saying something um that maybe I just didn't fully understand. Maybe the script was too smart for me. I don't know. Maybe I'm giving it too much credit. Maybe. But that's what I felt like was kind of like the reasoning for them always coming back together, was that when they did talk again 12 years after she moved,
Mm-hmm.
there was a clear connection there. But and so like, yeah, I guess that's how I took it, is that they had past lives together, and so that's like their souls like trying to come back together. um and it did, yeah,
But
when she sorry.
but if that is the message of the movie, then why didn't I feel like she had 8,000 layers with her husband? Why did he feel like such a shitbag? And like I never even like believed they were married.
Right, I personally think, and I haven't read anything like about like what, I haven't read any reviews or anything,
Mm-hmm.
um but I think that maybe like that was supposed to be that way. Like we're not supposed to see any chemistry between her and her husband, because they just met by chance. Like they talked about like, oh, the only reason we started dating was because we were both at this
Mm-hmm.
place, um and so I think the film wants you to believe that like she's not even supposed to be with him. She's supposed to be with the other guy.
Mm-hmm.
Um and that's why that there's
And then it
no.
says, "Oh well."
Yeah, yeah, and
That's what
then
I'm saying. Yeah.
yeah, she's it's like, okay, I'll go back home, and then I'll come back here with my husband and cry. It's funny, the movie opened with her crying as a little girl, and then ended with her crying as an
Mm-hmm.
adult. Oh, because of him.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I know, and I feel like if there was, and I don't think there will be, like a sequel to this, and it's like, oh, 12 years later, whatever, we're gonna see them together, like that they'll end up being together. That's how I think is what it's gonna go, because I think when she had that discussion with him, in their bedroom, I think, I don't know, she was starting to question, like maybe she should be with him.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I definitely feel like the movie very clearly and significantly articulates itself as saying these star-crossed lovers should be together, but then it gives no reason why they can't be. She can get a divorce. She doesn't even have kids. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
there's nothing
Right.
stopping
Yeah.
you from being with him. There's no forces at
Yeah.
will, nothing out of their control, just her own decision to not be with him because clearly she doesn't feel that way. Okay, so if she doesn't feel that way, why does the movie make me want to think she feels that way? Have you
Yeah.
ever seen the Before series? Before Sunrise, Before Sunset, Before Midnight, starring Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy?
No, but I know of it.
So those movies, like this movie is like trying to be that, but like that's
Okay.
that. Like those are like that's like one of my favorite trilogies of all time. Where, so this movie kind of shorthands what that trilogy does. There's no spoilers because you know there's three movies now. You've heard of all three of them, right?
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Okay,
I knew that it was.
right.
Yeah,
So when
yeah, yeah.
Before Sunrise came out, it was a one-off. It was like here's a movie about these two people, and I won't ruin it for you, but it's very good. It's a really good version of what this movie tried to be. And then, like in the late 2000s, early 2010s, they surprised everybody and was like, "We're doing a sequel. We're bringing both actors back. We're seeing where the characters are 15 years later." Like, holy shit, that's amazing. That's incredible. And then for the third one, they did it again. They came back 10 years later and they said, "Let's bring the same actors back and do it again." And you really get to see like a life's relationship evolution in a trilogy of movies because the actors are really aged and you could feel like a
Okay.
weight of time and everything. Like it's incredible. um and this I feel was like a 10-minute short stretched out to a full-length movie. I feel like this cute little romantic story about, oh, we just brushed paths, if it was like a 15-20 minute short, I probably would say it should win an Academy Award for best short film. But the fact that it was stretched out so long and there was so little meat on the bone to really chew on, and just
Yeah.
like, I can, again, in two sentences, I can surmise what the movie was. And um, yeah, it's just kind of, again, treading familiar water for me, for movie nerd who's watched a lot of movies, who really wants to be. I'm chasing a dragon that I'll never catch, or that I rarely catch, which is I want to be, I want to be swept up. I want to be emotionally invested. I want to root for the heroes. I want to be surprised. I want all these things, and I think most filmmakers and storytellers want those things too. I just think this one missed the mark for me personally, um, just because of all the reasons I've already stated. And just to be frank, like I wasn't. I think the lead, like her crying scene, was probably the most realistic acting in the whole movie. I really felt like she was really crying, but a lot of the
Mhm.
rest of the acting felt very, especially the husband, was like so on script.
Yeah, he was very stiff, and I didn't think her performance was that great
No,
either.
me either. Except for, again, like I said, the
Um,
breakdown scene.
it was like almost robotic. Um, yeah. So that was, I guess, the best was um I don't want to butcher his name, but the guy from
Right.
Korea.
Mm-hmm.
He was the most convincing to me. He
Yeah, I
actually seemed
completely
like
agree.
when it would show shots of him like looking depressed,
Hae Sung, that's his name in
and
the movie.
then
Yeah.
mhm, um I felt like he pulled it off. He was the best in the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. And again, like even at the 12-year check-in, when, oh, they're gonna reconnect, that's cool. And then when they're both like, well, I'm a year and a half before I can come back to Seoul. Well, I'm at least a year till I can come to New York. You guys don't fucking give a shit about each other. If you like, really loved each other and wanted to see, I'm on a fucking flight tomorrow. I'm taking the weekend. I
Hmm.
have to see you. I've seen Cameron Crowe movies. I've watched Tom Cruise stand in the doorway, and I've heard Renee Zellweger say, "You had me at hello." I know what romance is in movies. Okay, there was nothing romantic about the two of them. It's just like if you wanted it, you would go get it, but for something literally physically restraining you or your life is in danger. You know what I mean? Like, I
Hmm.
just feel like they chose that. There could have been a real, I don't know, there could have maybe been a poignancy if there was some sort of way to show or convey that they're aware that they chose this and they regret that they chose it. But even then, it's like it's not unchangeable. He's literally single and you have nothing tying you down. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I don't know. It just didn't work for me, unfortunately.
And her husband was pretty much like, I feel like you're gonna leave me.
He was like
So he knew
begging
what was
for her
going
to
on.
fucking leave. Yes. If this were a film, I'd be the villain in this story. I'd be the guy keeping you from your soulmate from Korea. Like, Great. So yeah, unfortunately, there wasn't a lot here for me. I'm glad that I watched it to give it a fair shake and to give it a fair chance, and to be properly informed when we do our Oscars predictions episode. I've definitely regretted in the past trying to do prediction episodes, whether it's Grammys or Oscars, and just like literally pulling names out of hats. I really feel like this year I'm going to be able to be like, I watched most of the big ones and all of the Best Picture nominees, and I can tell you, wholeheartedly what my opinion is going to be based on evidence gathered, right? So, yeah, not much else to say, I don't think, except that hopefully in a future life, never mind, I won't even say the joke. All right, that's going to do it for this episode. We'll get out of here. Yeah, just trying to be honest, trying to be fair, respectful, and honest. And if you watch movie review channels that love every movie that they watch, maybe consider if their opinions are being truthful. If you enjoyed this movie discussion, please like the video and comment and subscribe if you're new. As always, thank you for watching or listening, and we'll see you next time.